After my surgery complications, I texted, "Please, I just need anyone to sit with the kids." Hours later, my sister filled the family chat with smiling photos from a winery tour. Nobody came. 3 weeks later, still on pain meds and lying in my hospital bed, I woke up to 58 missed calls and a Venmo request from my mom that read, $2, $700 urgently. That was the moment I felt my anger boil over and realized something had to change. Stay with me as I share what really happened, and if my story hits your heart, don't forget to show a little support by liking, subscribing, and passing it along to someone who might need to hear it. My name is Aria. I'm a single mom of 2 amazing kids, just 8 and 10 years old. A few months back, I went through a dangerous surgery that left me weak, unable to walk around much, and dependent on others for even the smallest thing. I wasn't asking for money or gifts. I only asked for time, for someone to sit with my kids, make sure they were safe, and maybe help with meals while I was stuck in that hospital bed. I reached out to my family, thinking they would come through. I texted my sister, Layla, and my mom, Scarlett. I begged them, saying, "I can't even stand up. Please, I need you." But the replies I got broke me more than the pain in my body ever could. Layla brushed me off like I was asking for too much. Hours later, instead of checking on me, she posted pictures of herself drinking wine and laughing with friends, showing me that her leisure was more important than my children's safety. Scarlett, my mom, was no better. She told me I was exaggerating, that I was being dramatic, and that I needed to toughen up. She didn't come. She didn't even call to check on her grandkid. Days went by like that, me lying in bed, my kids trying their best to help, while my own family lived like I didn't exist. It planted a bitterness in me. I had always been there for them. When Layla needed help with rent, I gave her what little I had. When Scarlett was in trouble, I picked up the pieces. But when I was the one lying helpless, when my children were left without support, all I got in return was silence, excuses, and smiling photos that mocked me. That betrayal sat deep in my chest, heavier than the recovery pain. And when that Venmo request finally came, $2,700 demanded from me while I was still in bed, broke and barely healing, something inside me snapped. It was the moment I decided I would never beg for their love again. It was the moment I promised myself that one day, they would regret leaving me alone. The days after surgery blurred together in a haze of pain and exhaustion. Every time I tried to sit up, it felt like my body was tearing apart from the inside. I couldn't cook. I couldn't clean. I couldn't even stand for more than a few minutes without getting dizzy. The only reason I made it through those long nights was because of my 2 kids, just 8 and 10 years old, who tried their best to take care of things no child should ever have to. They would bring me water, try to make sandwiches, and even fold laundry the best they could. Sometimes, I would wake up and see my daughter dragging a chair to the kitchen counter just to reach the bread and peanut butter for her little brother. My heart broke watching them grow up too fast because the adults in their lives had decided not to care. What made the pain worse wasn't just my physical weakness. It was the silence. Every day I hoped that maybe Layla, my sister, would knock on the door or at least ask if the kids were okay. Instead, the family group chat would light up with her smiling selfie. She'd post pictures of brunch with friends, nights out, vacations she couldn't even afford but still flaunted. And when I finally got the courage to say, "I really need someone to come by. I can't do this alone," she ignored. Hours later, she sent another picture, this time clinking glasses at a bar. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe my mom would step in. But Scarlett had a way of cutting me down every time I asked for help. When I told her I was struggling to even walk to the bathroom, she snapped back. "You're exaggerating. People go through worse. You're not the first person to have surgery." Her words stung more than the stitches pulling at my skin. Instead of a mother's comfort, all I got was dismissal, like my pain was just some performance for sympathy. There were nights when I cried quietly into my pillow, not wanting my kids to hear, but they always did. My son would sit by my side, his little hand resting on mine, whispering, "It's okay, Mom, I've got you." And I hated myself for letting it come to this, for letting children carry the weight their families should have shared. Every time Layla posted another photo of her perfect life, every time Scarlett brushed off my pain, the loneliness grew heavier. I wanted to scream, to make them see how much I needed them, but I was too weak to fight back. My body wouldn't let me, and my spirit felt crushed under their neglect. In those moments, staring at the ceiling in a dark room while my kids tried to keep the house running, I realized the truth. I was completely abandoned by the people I thought would never leave, and that hurt more than any surgery scar ever could. It was close to midnight when I woke up to the harsh glow of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. My body still ached from the surgery, and the meds made my head heavy, but the endless vibration pulled me out of a foggy sleep. When I finally picked it up, my screen was filled with notifications, 58 missed calls, all from my mom and sister. For 1 second, my heart leapt. I thought maybe something had happened to my kids while they were sleeping in the next room. Fear gripped me as I opened my messages. The first thing I saw wasn't a message explaining anything. It was a Venmo request. From my mom. It said, $2,700 urgently. No explanation. No, how are you? No, are you okay? Just a demand for money. My hands shook as I hit the call button, my stomach twisting with dread. When my mom answered, her tone wasn't frantic or worried. She sounded annoyed, like I had made her wait too long. Finally, she said, I've been trying to reach you. I sent the request. It's important. Layla has an emergency and needs the money tonight. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was lying there in the hospital with stitches in my body, my kids caring for themselves like little adults. And the first thing my mother wanted from me was nearly $3,000 for my sister. Mom, I don't even have that kind of money, I said, my voice cracking. I can't work right now. I can't even walk. I've been begging for help and no one showed up. And now you're asking me for this. Instead of understanding, her voice turned sharp. Don't be selfish, Arya. Family helps each other. Layla needs it more than you do. You can figure it out. Her words hit me like ice. Selfish? After everything? I remembered all the nights I stayed up with her when she was sick, the money I loaned her that never came back, the countless times I babysat Layla's kids so she could run off to parties. But now, when I couldn't even get a glass of water on my own, I was the selfish one? I can't, I whispered. I won't. Not this time. Scarlett's tone grew colder. You've changed. Ever since this surgery, you've been playing the victim. You're forgetting what it means to be part of a family. Tears burned my eyes as I held the phone. Part of a family? What kind of family abandons you when you're at your weakest, then turns around to drain you dry when you have nothing left to give? I ended the call before she could say anything else. My chest was heavy, but somewhere beneath the hurt, a spark of anger lit up. That night I realized, if my mom and sister saw me only as a wallet, then it was time they learned I wasn't theirs to use anymore. The next morning, still weak from another sleepless night, I checked my phone again. Layla had finally decided to text me back, but it wasn't concern or even curiosity about how I was doing. Her message read, You need to man up. Stop using your kids as leverage. Everyone has problems. I stared at the screen in disbelief. My own sister thought my pain, my begging for someone to simply watch my children, was just some tactic to get pity. Anger swelled inside me, but more than that, a deep sadness. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't just neglect. My family didn't care about me at all. They mocked me, dismissed me, and saw me as nothing but a burden. Memories started rushing back, ones I had buried because it was easier to pretend I had a family that cared. I remembered Scarlett borrowing money from me years ago, promising she'd pay me back after just one paycheck. That paycheck came and went. More excuses followed. I let it slide because she was my mom, because I wanted to believe helping her meant something. But she never paid me back. She never even acknowledged it. Then there was Layla. I thought of the job interview I had lined up 2 years earlier. It was a position I really wanted, one that could have changed everything for me and my kids. Layla had called the hiring manager, someone she knew through a mutual friend, and slipped in little comments about how unreliable I was, how I always had too many personal issues. I didn't get the job. She admitted it to me later, half smiling, half jealous. I didn't think you were ready for something like that, she'd said. I told myself she didn't mean harm, but looking back, I realized she couldn't stand to see me succeed where she was failing. Lying there in bed, holding my phone, I pieced it all together. My mom used me. My sister sabotaged me. And both of them abandoned me in my weakest hour. This wasn't about family anymore. This was about control. They had always seen me as the one they could drain, the one they could laugh at, the one who would give without question. But that message from Layla, telling me to man up, while I was barely able to walk across the room, was the last straw. My blood boiled as I typed back, then deleted, then retyped. In the end, I didn't send anything. Words wouldn't change them. Actions would. I made a vow to myself right then. I would never let them use me again. No more handouts. No more silent forgiveness. No more excuses. If they wanted to see me as weak, then one day they would choke on their mistake when they realized just how strong I had become. That was my breaking point, and it was the first step toward my revenge. I stopped arguing with them. After Layla's cruel words and my mom's endless manipulation, I realized fighting back in the moment only gave them more power. So instead, I went quiet. I answered less in the family chat, stopped picking up their late-night calls, and began pulling myself away little by little. On the surface, it looked like I was retreating, but inside I was sharpening something else, my focus. Lying in bed with time to think, I began writing things down. Every time my mom asked me for something, I logged it. Every time Layla showed off her perfect life online while secretly begging me for small favors, I kept track. Patterns began to appear, and slowly, their selfishness was no longer just a feeling I carried. It was written proof, a record of how little they gave and how much they took. What helped me most was listening. Neighbors, friends, and even casual acquaintances would mention things they noticed about my family. Layla, for example, was drowning in debt. She kept up her Instagram-worthy lifestyle with credit cards she couldn't pay back. I heard whispers about unpaid rent, fights with landlords, and even a car loan she was months behind on. Her world looked shiny in pictures, but underneath it was crumbling. Scarlett wasn't much better. My mom had built a reputation for being dependable, but the truth was she leaned on me constantly, babysitting her grandkids when she wanted to go out, asking me for rides when her car broke down, calling me for a little cash when she couldn't stretch her paycheck. I had always said yes, thinking that was what family meant. But now, with clarity, I saw what it really was: dependence. They weren't strong without me. They needed me far more than I had ever needed them. The more I uncovered, the colder I felt inside. My pain slowly turned into something sharper, calmer. I wasn't the desperate daughter or the abandoned sister anymore. I was someone taking notes, someone building a plan. They had left me to rot when I begged for the smallest bit of care. And yet, they believed I would keep being their safety net. Not this time. I imagined what would happen if I stopped giving, if I stopped cushioning their mistakes. Layla's debts would swallow her whole. Scarlett's routines would collapse without me stepping in. They had built their comfort on my back, and I was about to remove it. The idea didn't fill me with guilt. It filled me with relief. For once, I would not be the weak one. For once, they would feel the emptiness they left me in. So I stayed quiet, kept smiling when they bragged, nodded when they lied, and tucked away every piece of information I gathered. Because when the time came, I would no longer be their helper or their victim. I would be the one who finally flipped the tables. The call came on a Tuesday morning. My body was still stiff, but I was finally able to move around the house in short steps without collapsing. Scarlett's name flashed across my phone, and for a moment, I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. "Aria," she started without a greeting, her voice sharp. "I need you to send me $600 today. It's important. Don't make this difficult." A few weeks ago, I would have panicked, checked my account, and tried to figure out how to scrape it together. But this time, something inside me hardened. "No," I said simply. There was silence on the line, followed by a scoff. "Excuse me? Did you just say no to your own mother?" "Yes," I repeated, steady and calm. "I can't, and even if I could, I wouldn't. Not anymore." Scarlett tried her usual tricks, sighing dramatically, accusing me of being selfish, reminding me of all the times she sacrificed for me. But I wasn't that desperate daughter anymore. I cut her off mid-sentence. "You left me begging in a hospital bed. My children were alone, and you didn't show up. Don't call me again for money." And then, for the first time in my life, I hung up on her. I thought that might be the end of it, but 2 hours later, there was a furious pounding on my front door. When I opened it, Layla stood there, arms crossed, eyes flashing with rage. "What is wrong with you?" she shouted before I could even speak. "Mom said you're refusing to help us. Do you think you're better than everyone now?" Her voice carried across the neighborhood, but I stayed calm. I leaned against the doorframe, still weak but unwilling to let her see it. "Layla, do you remember that night I begged you to sit with my kids while I was in the hospital? You left me on read and sent pictures of yourself drinking wine. Do you remember that?" She rolled her eyes, muttering, "Oh, here we go again." "No." I cut her off, my voice sharp for the first time. "You left my children alone when I could barely breathe. Don't you ever ask me for anything again." Her jaw clenched, and for a moment I thought she might cry. But instead, she pointed at me with a trembling hand. "You're vindictive, you know that? You hold grudges like a child. One day you'll regret this." And then she stormed off, slamming my gate so hard it rattled. I watched her walk away, her anger spilling into every step, but I felt something I hadn't felt in months: peace. For the first time, I had pushed back. I hadn't explained myself. I hadn't begged. I had stood on my own 2 feet and reminded them exactly why they had lost the right to demand anything. It was small, but it was a start, and I knew it was only the beginning. The shift started quietly. I didn't announce it. I didn't warn anyone. I just stopped being the person they could lean on. For years, I had been the safety net that caught every mistake, every bad decision, every careless action. But after everything they had done to me, that net was gone. The first test came when Scarlett called and said, "You need to pick up Layla's kids after school. She's busy and I can't do it." Her tone was sharp, like it was an order, not a request. Normally, I would have sighed, rearranged my day, and done it. But this time, I simply said, "No, I can't." Scarlett was stunned. "Excuse me? They'll be waiting outside. Do you want your niece and nephew stranded?" "They're not my responsibility," I said firmly. "Call their mother. She's the parent, not me." And then I hung up. That single refusal set off a chain reaction. A few days later, Layla's landlord called me. Apparently she had listed my number as her emergency contact. He explained she was 3 months behind on rent, and he needed to know if I could cover it for her. I took a deep breath and said, "No, I can't. But if she's not paying, you might want to document everything." His pause told me he hadn't expected honesty, but I didn't care. Layla had used my name to keep her life from falling apart, and I wasn't going to be her shield anymore. Then came the school. A teacher reached out, saying Layla's kids had been missing assignments and coming late most mornings. Again, my number was the one on file. Instead of covering for her like I always had, I told the truth. "You need to speak with their mother directly. She's been neglecting a lot of responsibilities lately." I could hear the judgment in the teacher's silence, and for once, it wasn't directed at me. Piece by piece, their carefully built image started to crumble. The version of Layla she showed to the world, glamorous, carefree, always put together, was cracking under the reality of unpaid bills, neglected kids, and poor choices. Scarlett, who had always claimed to be the strong matriarch, was exposed as someone who leaned on her daughter far more than she ever admitted. Meanwhile, I stayed steady. My recovery was slow, but I focused on my kids and our little home. I cooked simple meals, helped with homework, and let laughter back into our days. I didn't have much, but what I did have was real stability, peace, and the quiet joy of watching my children smile without fear. One evening, as I sat at the kitchen table folding laundry while my kids argued playfully over a board game, I realized something important. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I didn't feel weak. I didn't feel like the forgotten one or the burden. I felt stronger than the people who had abandoned me. And that strength, I knew, was just the beginning. Layla's collapse didn't happen overnight. It was the slow unraveling of a carefully crafted mask. For years, she had projected herself as the sister who had it all, the stable job, the charming boyfriend, the woman who could do no wrong. But one by one, the cracks widened. Her debts, hidden behind credit cards and borrowed money, finally caught up with her. Calls from collectors became daily alarms. Her landlord, tired of excuses, posted a notice on her door. And the boyfriend who once paraded her around like a trophy walked away the moment the shine dulled. Word spread quickly. Neighbors whispered, coworkers kept their distance, and even family friends who once praised Layla's perfect image suddenly avoided her. The house of cards had collapsed. Scarlett, desperate to maintain some illusion of family unity, immediately turned her gaze on Arya. "She's your sister," she hissed one evening over the phone, her voice thick with accusation. "She needs you. You need to step in and save her." Arya listened in silence, her grip tightening on the phone. For a long time, she might have caved, might have put aside her pain and exhaustion to carry the weight of someone else's mess. But not anymore. Her voice, calm but sharp, cut through Scarlett's demands. "Where was she when my kids needed food? When I needed help just to stand up after surgery? When I was lying in bed, begging anyone just to sit with my children?" Scarlett bristled, her tone turning shrill. "You sound heartless. She's family. Don't you have any compassion?" Arya almost laughed, though there was no humor in it. Heartless? She had spent years breaking herself to keep everyone else afloat, to make sure no one else ever felt abandoned. But compassion had nearly killed her, left her stranded in a hospital bed with pain meds numbing her body and silence filling her phone when she needed them most. This time, she wasn't moved. The guilt trips that once pierced her now slid off like rain on glass. She stood by her words, steady and unwavering. "Scarlett," Arya said finally, her tone cool, "I'm done being everyone's safety net. Layla's collapse isn't my burden. She built her image, and now she has to face what's underneath it." There was no screaming, no heated back and forth, just silence on the other end of the line. And for the first time, Arya felt the weight lift. She hung up, walked to her children, and smiled at the peace in her home. Layla's downfall wasn't hers to fix. Scarlett's disapproval no longer mattered. She was free. Free from manipulation. Free from expectations. Free from carrying people who would never carry her. And in that freedom, Arya realized something powerful. She wasn't heartless at all. She had finally learned how to protect her own heart. The dining room buzzed with chatter as Scarlett's carefully arranged family dinner got under. Platters of roasted chicken, bowls of steaming vegetables, and glasses of wine filled the long table. It was meant to feel warm, uniting, but Arya knew better. This wasn't reconciliation. This was an ambush. She hadn't wanted to come, but something inside her whispered it was time. Time to stop letting her silence be interpreted as weakness. As soon as everyone had taken their seats, Scarlett leaned forward, her voice sugary sweet, yet laced with steel. "Arya, dear, we all know you've been through a rough patch, but isn't it time you stepped up? Your sister has been drowning in debts, and you've been sitting there doing nothing. Don't you think it's time to help for once?" Layla, sitting directly across, chimed in sharply, her eyes narrowing. "Yeah, Arya, for once in your life, stop acting like a victim and actually be useful. You've let this family carry you long enough. Arya's fork hovered over her plate, her chest tightening, but this time, no fear rose. Only calm. Slowly, she set the fork down, folded her napkin, and looked up. Help for once. Her voice was soft, yet it cut through the noise. The room quieted. Where was Layla? Arya began, eyes locking with her sister's. When I was in the hospital bed, fresh from surgery, barely able to move, begging anyone, to sit with my kids so they wouldn't cry themselves to sleep. Where was she then? Layla opened her mouth, but Arya didn't give her the chance. She turned her gaze to Scarlet. And where were you, Mom, when my phone filled with messages from the hospital, pleading for help? And all you sent back was a Venmo request for $2,700. Do you remember that? Because I do. Every single day. The table went silent. Cousins shifted uncomfortably. An uncle cleared his throat, eyes darting between Scarlet and Arya. Scarlet's face flushed crimson. That's not fair. Arya didn't raise her voice, but her words landed like blows. Fair? You locked me out of my own home. You made it clear I didn't have a family anymore. And now, when Layla's perfect little world falls apart, suddenly I'm supposed to swoop in and save her? No, not anymore. Layla's composure cracked. She slammed her hand on the table, sending silverware rattling. You ungrateful, cold-hearted. But before she could finish, Aunt Miriam leaned forward, her voice steady. No, Layla. She's right. I remember those messages. I remember ignoring them. We all did. And now we're asking her to fix your mess? That's not right. One by one, murmurs of agreement rippled through the relatives. Arya sat back, watching as the unshakable alliance of Scarlet and Layla fractured under the weight of truth. For the first time, she didn't feel like the outcast. She felt free. The silence after the family confrontation lingered longer than expected. Calls from Layla and Scarlet stopped completely, and for the first time in years, Arya realized she didn't miss them. Instead, she found herself surrounded by people she had once overlooked. The neighbor who always waved and slipped a casserole onto her porch after surgery, the coworker who rearranged shifts so she could make doctor's appointments, the friend who picked up her kids from school without complaint. These weren't people bound to her by blood, but they showed up in ways her family never had. Scarlet and Layla, on the other hand, were unraveling. Word of the confrontation had spread, and relatives who once hung on their every word now kept their distance. Without the weapon of guilt, their power over the family evaporated. They had tried to shame Arya into silence, but all they managed to do was expose their own selfishness. Invitations to family gatherings stopped arriving for them. When they reached out in desperation, hoping to pull Arya back into their orbit, she didn't even flinch. She had already moved on. Arya threw her energy into building something better. She organized small get-togethers with her neighbors, accepted help without feeling weak, and gave it back whenever she could. Slowly, she began to see her children laugh again, not with the strained awkwardness they carried when they felt her pain, but with a lightness that came from stability. The house was filled with warmth that didn't come from blood relatives, but from chosen family, the kind who cared because they wanted to, not because they had to. On a quiet Sunday evening, Arya set the table for dinner. The kids were bickering playfully, arguing over who got the bigger slice of cornbread. She paused, watching them, her chest tightening, but this time, not from loneliness. It was from pride. She had built this. Without Layla's manipulation, without Scarlet's condescension, without begging anyone to love her the way she deserved. The revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even about making Layla and Scarlet pay. It was about living so fully, so joyfully, that their absence no longer mattered. That was the truest victory. When the kids finally sat down and dug in, Arya lifted her glass of water, a soft smile tugging at her lips. No speech, no declaration. Just a quiet thought she kept to herself. I'm free. And for the first time, she actually believed it. Do you believe Arya made the right choice by cutting ties and building her own life? Or should she have tried once more to mend things with her family? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear them. And if stories like this resonate with you, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new one.